and welcome to my channel. This is Joey Sewy and my name's Jo, and this is where I talk about sewing, knitting, textiles, creativity, life and all sorts of stuff. Today we're gonna get into part 2 of my custom dress experience. Part tutorial, part video diary, just sharing the experience with you. If you haven't seen part 1, there will be a link down below and at the end of the video. In part 1 I describe what I am making. Essentially I'm making a prom dress for a friend of a friend, and it is a halter neck dress with a full circle skirt. Now in the first part I talked about what my brief was, the fabric I was going to use, where I started in terms of a pattern. And in the first part I showed you draping because I was creating the pattern. I had a pattern to start from, but I was draping the pattern from there on in. So in this second part we get from draping the back all the way through to after the first fitting. So that's what we've got going on here. So we're moving on to do the back piece. I've got a full back, although the dress that we're going to do is going to have a lower back. So I've marked the centre back seam here in yellow. I've begun to mark the waist seam, but it's obvious that I need to start clipping this so that the fabric can relax. So that's what I'm going to do. I haven't pinned it around the side too much yet. We're going to mark the side seam, and for now, because I don't know how low Chloe wants the dress, I know she wants a lowish back, but I don't know what kind of bra she's going to wear underneath it, so I'm going to cut it off fairly high up here, level with the armpit really. And then when it's on her we can look at it and decide whether she wants it to scoop a little bit more down here. So I'm just going to do that by eye. I will cut along here and I'll trim that, and then I will mark that on this side. Rather than marking it up by hand on this side, I'll transfer the markings because then I get a symmetrical effect rather than the human error of trying to do it perfectly on both sides, which wouldn't happen. Here I'm working on the back pattern piece. I've taken it off the mannequin and I am cutting out one side, leaving a seam allowance. So there is one pattern piece. I'm now going to lay it on top of the second pattern piece and trace off on that so that I get two identical versions, also leaving a seam allowance. So those dots there bled through the fabric and just helped me to get a completely consistent left and right side to the back. Then tracing off using my curved ruler, adding in some seam allowance and then cutting out. And then we have a left and a right back pattern piece. Now I'm tracing off the front pattern piece so that I have a paper copy. So I've taken apart the toile in the front and I've marked all the changes. My tracing wheel, you've seen it before on my channel, it marks a seam allowance, so it has 2 wheels on it. I'm then going over those lines with pencil and then I'm cutting around them with my scissors. So I'm making myself a paper pattern piece so that I can make 2 identical fronts, left and right front, again just as with the back piece. Here we are at the end of a day's work. I've attached the circle skirt. I'm still not 100% sure about the fit of the bodice. I need it on a real human being, to be honest, but we'll see. ultimately the dress is going to be worn with an underskirt, so that will change the look of the circle skirt, but I'm pretty happy with it. Turn it around, I'll show you from the side. So there's the back, just pinned it at the moment. It will have a back zip. I think that Chloe's going to want the line of the back to come a bit lower, but as I said, when I cut it, I'm going to leave it high and see what she thinks. And I think these wrinkles here, depending if they persist when they're on her body, they probably indicate that I need to put a curved waistband in. At the moment it's just a straight waistband, which works fine at the front, but it's not working brilliantly at the back. But that might not be something that continues when it's on her. I'm not sure. We will find out. The only other thing is, I think that maybe she might want the waist actually lifting a little bit. So we'll see. So the next step is to find a time to fit it on the actual human being. So this is unfortunately the only image I got of the first fitting. Chloe was quite happy for me to share the process, but I was too busy doing the fitting to do any video of her. And so this is the only video I've got of the first fitting. But the outcome of the first fitting, it was pretty positive, to be honest. It needed, overall the dress needed to be made a little bit smaller. And I'd kind of anticipated that because I was sort of forcing it onto my mannequin, and I'd made the mannequin as small as I could so that I could work with it, but I knew in my heart of hearts it wasn't quite the right size. So I just took in the side seams, I pinned those in, and also took some from the centre back. What I also needed to do that I mentioned earlier was that Chloe wanted the back lower, so we had quite a long discussion about where we wanted it to go and what she was going to do in terms of underwear underneath it. So in the end we decided what we were going to do was actually build a bra into the front that became part of the dress, so that she didn't need to worry about it showing above the line at the back of the dress. So we took the back of the dress quite low on the next version, on the final version, and then also my mannequin and where her waist was sitting on the dress were not the same place, so the whole thing needed to be lifted up slightly, so the waist was quite a lot higher on her body than it was on the mannequin. So those are the main things that I translated. So here's a picture of the bodice. When it was on Chloe, I did lots of Sharpie lines, attempting not to draw on the human, and I mostly succeeded. So I did lots of Sharpie lines of where things needed to change, and then after she'd gone, when I came back to the project, I took the bodice off the skirt, and I was left with lots of new lines for where the waistline seam needed to go, so you'll be able to see that on the picture, and where the new side seams needed to go, and any changes around the neck. So that's how I fit. I'm sure it's not very conventional, but that's how I do things. I like having the blank canvas of the toile. I can scribble all over it. I can make sure I know what's happening. Use a different colour at this point so you know which marks you made during the first fitting if you're copying my method. That is really important, because if you use the same colour you'll get very lost. Luckily they make Sharpies in many different colours. And then this final picture is just another step on from there. What I've done here is I've marked some seam allowances against the new lines that I did at the first fitting, and I've started to take the toile apart, because now the toile will become my pattern for the next stage of making the dress. So I will literally take it all apart again, including the darts, everything, iron it flat, cut to so that the new outline of the pattern includes the new seam allowances, and then in the next video we'll move on and you'll see me cutting that out on the actual fabric. So there we are. That was where I was left after the first fitting, and just about to embark on cutting out the final fabric, which is always a scary bit, and putting together the dress in its final form, and that's what will be coming up in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. If you would like to see a playlist of all the videos as they are uploaded, it will be here. If you'd like to see another video from my channel, it will be here, and you can subscribe to my channel here, and that would be great. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.